Hello, and welcome back to Bedtime Stories with Vice Vice Baby, where we will continue good stories for great holidays. The Trial of Psyche. Over mountains and valleys, Psyche journeyed alone until she came to the city where her two envious sisters lived with the princes whom they had married. She stayed with them only long enough to tell the story of her unbelief and its penalty. Then she set out again to search for love. As she wandered one day, travel worn but not hopeless, she saw a lofty palace on a hill nearby, and she turned her steps thither. The place seemed deserted. Within the hall, she saw no human being, only heaps of grain, loose ears of corn, half torn from the husk, wheat and barley, alike scattered in confusion on the floor. Without delay, she set to work binding the sheaves together and gathering the scattered ears of corn in seemly wise, as Princess would wish to see them. While she was in the midst of her task, a voice startled her, and she looked up to behold Demeter herself, the goddess of the harvest, smiling upon her with goodwill. "Hello, Psyche," said Demeter. "You are worthy of happiness, and you may find it yet. But since you have displeased Venus, go to her and ask her favor. Perhaps your patient will win her pardon." These motherly words gave Psyche heart, and she reverently took leave of the goddess and set out for the temple of Venus. Most humbly she offered up her prayer, but Venus could not look at her earthly beauty without anger. "Vain girl," said she, "perhaps you have come to make amends for the wound you dealt your husband. You shall do so. Such clever people can always find work." Then she led Psyche into a great chamber, heaped high with mingled grain, beans, and lentils, the food of her doves, and bade her separate them all and have them ready in seemingly fashion by night. Heracles would have been helpless before such a vexatious task. Poor Psyche, left alone in this desert of grain, and not courage to begin. But even as she sat there, a moving thread of black crawled across the floor from a crevice in the wall, and, bending nearer, she saw that a grainy army of ants and columns had come to her aid. The zealous little creatures worked in swarms, with such industry over the work they liked best, that when Venus came at night, she found the task completed. "Deceitful girl," she cried, shaking the roses out of her hair with impatience. "This my son's work, not yours, but he will soon forget you. Eat this black bread if you are hungry, and refresh your dull mind with sleep. Tomorrow you will need more wit." Psyche wondered what new misfortune could be in store for her. But when morning came, Venus led her to the brink of a river, and, pointing to the wood across the water, said, "Go now to yonder grove, where the sheep with the golden fleece are wont to browse. Bring me a golden lock from every one of them, or you must go your ways and never come back again." This seemed not difficult, and Psyche obediently bade the goddess farewell and stepped into the water, ready to wade across. But as Venus disappeared, the reeds sang louder, and the nymphs of the river, looking up sweetly, blew bubbles to the surface and murmured, "Nay, nay, have a care, Psyche. This flock has not the gentle way of sheep. While the sun burns aloft, they are themselves as fierce as flame, but when the shadows are long, they go to rest and sleep under the trees, and you may cross the river without fear and pick the golden fleece off the briars in the pastures." Thanking the water creatures, Psyche sat down to rest near them, and when the time came, she crossed in safety and followed the counsel. Like twilight, she returned to Venus with her arms full of shining fleece. "No mortal wit did this," said Venus angrily. "But if you care to prove your readiness, go now with this little box down to Proserpina and ask her to enclose it in some of her beauty, for I have grown pale in caring for my wounded son." It needed not the last taunt to set on Psyche. She knew that it was not for mortals to go into Hades and return alive. And feeling that love had forsaken her, she was minded to accept her doom as soon as might be. But even as she hastened towards the descent, another friendly voice detained her. "Stay, Psyche. I know your grief. Only give ear, and you shall learn a safe way through all these trials." And the voice went on to tell her how one might avoid all the dangers of Hades and come out unscathed. But such a secret could not pass from mouth to mouth with the rest of the story. "And be sure," added the voice, "when Proserpina has returned the box, not to open it, ever, much you may long to do so." Psyche gave heed, and by this advice, whatever it was, she found her way into Hades safely, and made her errand known to Proserpina, and was soon in the upper world again, wearied but hopeful. "Surely love has forgotten me," she said, "but humbled as I am and worn with toil, how shall I ever please him? Venus can never need all the beauty in the casket, and since I use it for love's sake, it must be right to take some." So saying, she opened the box, heedless as Pandora. The spells and potions of Hades are not for the mortal maids, and no sooner had she inhaled the strange aroma than she fell down like one dead, quite overcome. But it happened that Love himself was recovered from his wound, and he had secretly fled from his chamber to seek out and rescue Psyche. He found her laying by the wayside. He gathered into the casket what remained of the philter, and awoke his beloved. "Take comfort," he said, smiling. "Return to our mother, and do her bidding till I come again." Away he flew, and while Psyche went cheerily homeward, he hastened up to Olympus, where all the gods sat feasting, and begged him to intercede for him with his angry mother. They heard this story, and their hearts were touched. Zeus himself coaxed Venus with kind words till at last she relented, and remembered that anger hurt her beauty, and smiled once more. All the younger gods were for welcoming Psyche at once, and Hermes was sent to bring her hither. The maiden came a shy newcomer among those bright creatures. She took the cup that Hebe held out to her, drank the divine ambrosia, and became immortal. Light came to her face like moonrise. 2 radiant wings sprang from her shoulders, and even as a butterfly burst from its dull cocoon, so the human psyche blossomed into immortality. Love took her by the hand, and they were never parted anymore. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Bedtime Stories with Vice Vice Baby. I hope you'll have a good night and sweet dreams.